evening, everyone. Good evening. The regular school board meeting of the Lenape Regional High School District Board of Education is called to order. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate public notice has been given in the following manner. Posting the notice in the entrance of the administration building and in the office of the board secretary, and posting it on the Lenape Regional High School District website, and sending via email on April 18, 2024. Change of meeting date, cancellation meeting notice, to the Burlington County Times, to the clerks of the 8 Situate municipalities. Roll call, please.
Dr. Monday? Here. Mrs. Eswell?
Yes.
Ms. Jones is not here. Mr. Lee is not here. Mrs. Harmon? Here. Mrs. Lake? Here. Mr. Lake?
Here.
Mrs. Levis? Here. Mr. Roseborough?
Here.
Sampson? Here. Mr. Stowe?
Here.
And myself. Here.
After the flag salute, for those who are able, we ask that you please remain standing for a special announcement. Please stand for the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before this board meeting tonight, a number of us were able to pay our respects for one of our former board members, Mr. Ted Shinsky, who recently passed away. So I'd like to ask all of you to join us in a moment of silence as we remember Ted Shinsky and extend our sympathy to his wife Betty, and of course his entire family and all his friends whom we love and miss him dearly.
Thank you. Please have a seat. New business? New business? Okay, we have our reports.
Nothing to report at this time, Mr. President.
Board Secretary.
I have nothing to report.
Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Roseborough, Mr. President. I have some very exciting news to share tonight. Before I pull up Mr. Catani to the podium, I would like to pass it over to Rebecca Silk, our student representative on the Board of Education. This is her second to last report of the year, and since no one ever comes to a June board meeting, I'd like to take this time now with the full house to extend my gratitude to Abby and just let her know how proud I am with all of the work that she did this year, being our second only student representative to the Board of Education. So thank you, Abby.
Okay. Seneca Student Council hosted the annual Gold Eagle pageant at the end of March. This is when 12 seniors competed for the title of Mr. and Mrs. Seneca. The show this year was amazing. Dean Kanaka and Grayson Graham were awarded Mr. and Mrs. Seneca. Boys swim coach Christine Gerber was honored as the South Jersey Boys Swimming Coach of the Year. Seniors Alex Soderwald and Katie Andrews were appointed to the United States Military Academy at West Point, an outstanding accomplishment for both of them. Seneca seniors went on their senior trip to Disney. This trip was filled with so much fun and excitement and energy. I know I had a great time. Everyone had a great time on the trip, and we are counting down the days until senior prom this Friday, May 10th. Finally, 8 of Seneca's DECA students went to Anaheim, California to compete at ICGC Nationals against students from all over the world. Shawnee's Kids for Kids Wish Club hosted the Teachers Got Talent show, where teachers and staff danced, sang, and performed in different events. This event raised over $3,800. In preparation for the senior trip, the Senior Class Council hosted a drive-in movie for its seniors to watch together to get into the Disney spirit. Shawnee DECA students competed in Anaheim, California for nationals, and the Student Council has been working to prepare for the annual Mr. Shawnee pageant. Lenape held their 13th annual Mr. Lenape. It was amazing to see all the hard work and creativity that was put into the skits. One guideline that the skits must follow was to use a song that inspired them. Leading up to the show, contestants participated in penny wars, Lenape students celebrated Poetry Day in their English classes, where they were able to share poems that they enjoyed reading. Seniors went on their class trip to Disney World, and everyone had so much fun. At the end of the month, World Language Honor Societies held their annual Honor Society induction ceremony, where they also honored students who passed the seal of biliteracy. Cherokee Spring sports are in full swing, and the senior class has begun the final chapter of their senior year with the infamous Disney trip. All spring sports are off to a great start, especially their baseball team, who won 3 of their 4 games with hope to reclaim their Group 4 title. The senior class recently participated in Senior Day of Service out in the community. The senior class is very excited for their next chapter, but will always cherish their moments at Cherokee. Several DECA students competed in ICDC Nationals in Anaheim, California. These students have been working very hard to try and win on the national level. Overall, another great month.
Thank you very much. Next, can I please have the principal of Lenape High School, Mr. Tony Catani, come to the podium for some very exciting news about our Group 4 state championship.
Absolutely. Dr. Birnbaum, Board of Education, thank you for having me here. I'm Tony Catani, proud principal of Lenape High School, and we're here to celebrate our girls' basketball team from Lenape High School. Extremely talented group of young women and a dynamic coaching staff that brought us home our 2nd state championship in school history. And I want to
District for girls basketball.
That's even better. I don't look at Lenape, but you look with disrespect. I appreciate that. So sorry. Principals. We don't have my district colors on tonight, so I'm representing Lenape as always. But I want to introduce the state coach of the year, Sean McNair. Come on up. Extremely proud of Coach Mack here, bringing our group of girls together, and our staff just really took the energy of our building over for several months with a great run to a state championship. But he's an amazing coach, brought a lot of things together for our team, but just an amazing person involved in a lot of things in our special education program, as a teacher, advisor, he has his hands in everything at Lenape. And then for him to get state coach of the year this year with this dynamic team, just really proud of this guy. Staying excellent. So congratulations, Coach Mack.
All right, good evening. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Dr. Birnbaum and the Board of Education for having us here this evening and for honoring these amazing young ladies. When our season started, we kind of flew under the radar. We were a very young, inexperienced team, so we had to overcome some early obstacles, and we grew as we learned to play together. We found success after a couple losses early in the season, but by the end of the year, these girls had won 18 straight games, which was the longest win streak in the state of New Jersey. Along the way, they won the Olympic Conference divisional title, the Burlington County tournament title, the Group 4 South Jersey sectional championship, and ultimately a Group 4 state championship. Like most of our season, our state championship game was one that was defined by defense. We held Morristown from North Jersey Group 4 to 28 points after they had been averaging 50 points per game in the playoffs. It was a close game early, but these girls really came through for each other in the second half. We hit 3 big threes, and they never looked back. The girls never let Morristown get close, and they held on for a 15-point victory as we won 43 to 28. On a personal note, I have to say these girls were an absolute joy to coach. I loved the opportunity to work with them. This is a very rare group of student athletes. They are silly, goofy, funny, extremely outgoing, but they will always be defined to me by their commitment, their work ethic, and their competitiveness. I've never had a group that worked so well and so hard together to achieve their goals. Throughout the big victories, they still found a way to enjoy the little moments of our season together. You should hear them argue about fruit snacks or serenade their coaches on the bus ride home. Beautiful singing voices. Their success was a product of how much they pushed each other to improve, being there to pick each other up when times got tough, and valuing everyone's role on the team, on and off the court. They are fantastic representatives of our school and our community. We'd like to thank everyone here this evening from the district office and our Board of Education for their support along the way during this very special season. I consider myself very lucky to have been their coach, and I'm very honored to be up here tonight recognizing them for their achievements. So at this time, I'd like to call them up. They'll get their certificate. Girls will meet in the middle for our photo, okay? First, our senior captain, Sienna Fedor. Junior Alexa Henry. Freshman Eloise Joe Saban. Junior Rebecca Taylor. Freshman Shelby Crowley. Sophomore Olivia Watkins. And junior Lauren Coleman. I also have to bring up two coaches who helped me immensely throughout the season. I would not be here without you two, Kristen Bucci and Danny Flake. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're in there too.
Get up and take a picture.
And I'll share the picture with Coach Mack.
Just wanted to say a few words. Coach Mack, thank you for the wonderful comments. If you don't, I had a chance to see this game this year, the championship game. If you really don't follow the team very closely, you look for little details about the type of art the team has. And one of the things you can really tell pretty quickly is just by a loose ball. When a ball is loose, 5 girls go after it, 1 girl go after it. Well, let me tell you, in that game, the most dangerous place you could be was between a loose ball and Olympic basketball. They were, it was a joy to watch. It was clear how well coached the ladies are, and it was a pleasure to just witness the whole thing. So, I know you brought great pride towards your school, but you also made the board very proud of you. You represent us all so very well. So we just want to Coach Mack, want to thank you. They just want to thank you. You all did a fabulous job. I can't wait to see you again this year. I'll get to a lot more games this year. Thank you so much. All right, at this time, this concludes the presentation portion of the board meeting. If anyone would want to move on or leave before we go to the next part of the board meeting, you're welcome to give at this time.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Davis, for the 24-25 budget.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board and administration. It's that time of year again when I have the opportunity to stand before you and present the 24-25 budget for the Lenape Regional High School District. And I have to confess that this one's going to really hurt. Since I came onto this board 20 years ago, I've stood here countless times, and each year I've tried to express my concern for the continued lack of support that our school district gets from the state of New Jersey towards our budget. Even as we continue to provide an education opportunity and experience that's heads above any others in the state. Our district's no stranger to sacrifice and giving. Year after year, as you'll hear in this presentation tonight, our district has had to struggle with lost revenue, lost funding, but we have found ways to maintain that high standard of education and opportunities that the district has been known for. I'm a graduate of this district, as many of the other board members are. My wife's a graduate, my daughters are a graduate, my brothers are a graduate, and we have all benefited from the educational experience that the Lenape Regional High School District has provided to us. And it really upsets me to have to give you a budget presentation like I'm going to give you tonight. Even with all the cuts that you're going to see tonight that we've had to endure, our district continues to be above most, if not all, the schools in this state. We show you what I'm talking about. These are just a few of the highlights that we have for the Lenape Regional High School District. We offer over 236 courses. 24 of those are advanced placement courses. 70 of those are college accelerated programs where we partner with Rowan College of Bronte County and Rowan University. We have a high quality in district special education programs and option 2. In fact, something that I am just amazed by is during the 22-23 school year, 928 of our students took college accelerated programs at our schools and earned 7,229 college credits, in addition to completing state requirements for coursework for the high school diploma. And all this was at no cost to the district or taxpayers. In fact, if you want to put a dollar sign on it, you're talking somewhere over $1 million worth of credits that our families have been able to save because of the college accelerated programs. Our average graduation rate, 97% among our four high schools. Our SAT scores at all 4 high schools are consistently above the state and national averages and among the highest in our region. State and national awards for achievement in areas ranging from television, broadcasting, special education, performing arts, robotics, fine arts, athletics like you heard tonight, and even community service. And every one of our Lenape Regional High School District schools is fully accredited through the Middle States Association Commission on Secondary Schools. Middle States, in fact, has come out and designated our schools worthy of emulation in public secondary education. So looking at our school district and our budget for this year, we are facing a $4.69 million deficit in state funding. Now that sounds like it should reflect maybe the loss of students that we're incurring, but really we're looking at an enrollment decrease of maybe 80 students. So the proportion just doesn't seem right. A 1.23% decrease in students and an almost 20% decrease in state funding. But if you add to that the increase that we have in special education students with disability, 3.6% or 40 of our students, we're not even fully funded for special education because the state has a law in there that says that they will only provide support for 15.9% of the population. And in the Lenape district, enrollment we're at 19.1%. So we're actually, in addition to the 4.7 that they're cutting us, we're almost 4.5 million underfunded. Our superintendent has been amazing, along with her staff and administration, in leading the fight against some of the reform that needs to take place in the state of New Jersey. And I've asked her, because of the countless hours and dedication that she's had to this district, also being a graduate of this district, if she would share some of her presentation that she's had the opportunity to share to some of our politicians up in Trenton. Dr. Birnbaum, would you do that, please?
Thanks, Mr. Smith. I have a clicker.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, at the beginning of the board meeting, I normally have the opportunity to talk about all the great things that happened in our school district the last month, pulled from all the reports the principals give me. We talk about, some of the great activities our teachers do to engage our learners, some of the unique professional development opportunities our teachers get to go on, student achievement in academics, athletics, like tonight, extracurricular activities. We love sharing the great news like Abby did tonight about all the things that our students are doing in our school district. But our job as a board isn't always about delivering good news, and there are times that we need to deliver news that's difficult to hear, and tonight is one of those times. I'm going to share how we balance our budget in a state that doesn't fully support education, not for all the students, the way the headlines claim that it does. I'm going to provide you information on how New Jersey funds education and really how it became a mess. As you just heard from Mr. Stowe, the outlook for the fiscal year 25 is devastating. And after I'm finished sharing how New Jersey funds education and how it became a mess, we will get a clear picture of the reasons why we had a budget hole in the millions of dollars prior to the notification of the state aid reduction. So that last sentence down there, is really important. Even before the governor announced this drastic aid cut to us, we were already looking at a budget deficit in the millions. So just to give you a little bit of history here, many of our staff have seen some of this presentation. The School Funding Reform Act was enacted in 2008. That's how it calculates which schools get which money. Half of our current students weren't even born yet, right, in 2008. It was developed to provide equity in resources to the underserved population. To do that, they created this term called local fair share, okay, to send more of the state's funding to districts in poor neighborhoods. The districts that have students that the state deems can afford to pay more, the state provides less funding. And leaves the wealthier districts to tax at a greater rate. That's how the local fair share was supposed to work. The law was drafted in 2006, and it had a hard time passing. And in order to get it passed by 2008, some deals were made, and districts were promised that they would not see less state aid as a result of the School Funding Reform Act. And what was implemented on the bottom bullet there was called adjustment aid, what we call flat funding, and it was provided to all districts at that time, so no one would lose state aid after SFRA was implemented. But unfortunately, the Department of Education didn't really have a chance to see if the funding formula was good or not, because there were so many things that occurred, both through no fault of their own and really through the fault of many. The first thing to interfere with the funding formula was the banking collapse in 2008, right? Prompting Governor Christie in 2010 to order massive cuts to all school districts. Our school district that year was cut $6.47 million, or at that time it was 21%. It was 21% of our state aid, similar to the 20% reduction we're seeing this year in state aid. We cut administrative positions, non-rep employees, cut programs, started trimming in all areas, programs like Behind the Wheel, summer school, and adult aid school were eliminated. It was the start of our students funding their own field trips, and we laid off all of our cafeteria workers as we privatized our food services, and that year we handed out 400 pink slips to certificated staff, which were eventually rescinded as a hiring freeze was agreed upon. The second thing Governor Christie did The second thing that occurred that year, after the state aid reduction, was Governor Christie enacted this 2% tax levy cap. It was an arbitrary number. It was accompanied by a toolkit of mandatory cost savings, such as shared services, many of the things that we've implemented at that time and still continue to implement. And we also continue to freeze salaries for certain administrators, reduce positions through attrition, and made other operational cuts during that time. The formula was run, and it was never fully funded. The district's ability to raise funds through the tax levy cap was capped, all while the cost of everything else was on the rise. And I always say this is analogous to really a budget reduction every year. And I want to explain the simplest way why I think that this is, analogous to reduction. Let's say, for quick math purposes, you have a $100 million budget, okay? And to move your budget from one year to the next, let's say you think it's going to cost 4%, okay? The cost of everything goes up, right? Health insurance, goods and services, electricity, salaries. Let's say it only costs 4% to move our budget from one year to the next. Well, 4% is $4 million, okay? So you need $4 million, but state aid is flat, right? This is during the time of flat state aid, so you're not getting it from state aid, so you can try and raise revenue, right? You can try and institute things like fees for athletics and activities and other things, but that's only gonna get you so much. So you're gonna get it from your tax levy cap. Well, you can only tax the community at 2%. So 2% of $100 million is $2 million. So you're only gonna be able to raise $2 million in taxes, but you need $4 million. You've got this $2 million hole that really isn't gonna get filled by all those little tiny revenue things you're trying to do. So what do you have to do every single year to make your budget? You gotta make cuts, okay? And that's what we had to do every single year. State aid frozen or flat funded, you aren't getting that money from anywhere else but making cuts. Bottom line is the School Funding Reform Act, bottom line is the School Funding Reform Act was not created to coexist with a 2% cap. It really wasn't. The makers of the School Funding Reform Act didn't have a 2% cap when they envisioned that. Even with state aid funding remaining constant, we were left with that cap, the gap, or what we call the 2% tax gap. So here's another law that, or event that actually interfered with the funding formula. It was called S2. So years of flat funding not only had a negative impact on all districts, like I just demonstrated, it also had a severe impact on districts who were seeing their enrollment grow over that time, right? You can imagine your school's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but you only have flat state aid. So those school districts were suffering. And so S2 was created to help those school districts that were deemed underfunded during that period of time. Okay, well, that seems fair, right? The state should make them whole. They should catch them up. But what wasn't fair is that instead of the state providing that money, they took it away from other school districts like ours. And that's when they created the winners and losers. 220 school districts in that year were told that for the next 7 years, they were going to see their state aid reduced. We were one of those. And there was no ability for school districts to make up the state aid loss every year because, again, we're capped at 2%. So you can imagine that example that I gave you of having a $2 million hole, well, that was during flat funding. So now we have this 2% tax gap every year, compounded greater by the reductions in state aid. So as operational costs increase and state aid reductions increase, our holes just got bigger and bigger and bigger. There's I think Mr. Stowe had mentioned about the percent between the loss in enrollment, right? So this was all created to catch people up that were seeing such a great rate of enrollment that their state aid should catch up to them. And if you can see out there on the handouts, I did put out some handouts over there. One of them has some yellow highlights on it. And NewJersey.com ran this article. During our look back period, I even say a look back at the years before S2 was created, we went down 10% enrollment and we were going to lose 36% of our state aid. It's not proportionate. Next year we're losing 80 students, right? 1.23% of our student population, we're losing 20% of our state aid. So what NewJersey.com is, they went even further. They did like a big picture look. They looked at much broader. They looked at when SFRA was implemented in 07, 08, and the percent up and down of school funding, and your enrollment up and down in school funding to today. So we're on the bottom of this list here, right? So they said during the entire time, our enrollment went down 12%, but we lost 33% of state aid. It's not proportionate. I always like to point to this, on the second page there, you've got Willingboro. They went down 21% in enrollment, and they went up 87% in state aid. Okay, different seesaw there. But that was the funding form was supposed to do, right? It was supposed to help the underserved populations. Okay, so we really don't want to compare ourselves to Willingboro, although they're getting $54 million in state aid for 3,000 students. Just so you know, we have close to 7,000 students in our school district, and we're getting $18 million in state aid. But we don't want to compare ourselves to Willingboro. So let's look at someone who's maybe more like us back on the first page, Delran. Right? Think of Delran. Delran's a really nice community. You think of all of our 8 townships put together, we're sort of like a Delran, right? Well, they went up in enrollment less than 1%, but they saw their state aid increase 200%. What is going on here? This doesn't make any sense. All right, well, maybe we're wealthier than Delran. Well, who's the wealthiest district in Burlington County? You got Morristown, right? Look on the back page there. Morristown, their enrollment went down 12%, but they increased in their state aid 36%. Okay? All of this is pointing to this funding formula is not working. There is something definitely wrong, and it needs to be fixed. So we have here that we were told we were going to be losing at the beginning of this about $8.3 million. That was going to be a projected loss of $26 million. Now, the Department of Education just recently calculated that we really should have lost through S2 $6.8 million. And our total state aid reduction during S2 is $10.32 million, exceeding even what the Department of Education thought that we should lose, which is $3.52 million. And now we know the actual cumulative loss to state aid. It's not a guess anymore. It's over $30 million in the last 7 years to our school. Now, if those variables weren't enough, there were some pressure on government officials to lower the amounts public employees pay for health benefits. Okay, so yet another factor that interfered with having to operate school funding, an outside influence, if you will. In 2020, there was a law passed to offer savings, right? It was touted as it was going to save districts, taxpayers, and employees money. That's how it got passed by the politicians. It's going to save districts, taxpayers, and employees money, right? It is simply impossible to deliver on those things because what do they forget? The health insurance companies, right? Who was going to lose here? It looked like maybe the health insurance companies. Well, the health insurance companies aren't going to lose here. Something embedded in this law was that the employee contribution was going to pay their portion on a percent of their salary versus a percent of the premium, which was previously what we had to do was a percent of our premium, of the insurance premium is what was based on our percentage. Well, if the insurance companies are losing money from some of these plans that are offered, what do? They raise their premiums the next year. And if they raise their premiums, but we can't raise what we can get from our employees' contributions, that becomes, again, another hole in our budget. We lost revenue with this law. In addition, some of these new plans are also using workers' money. So, just to recap some of these outside influences that occurred, right? We had the 2008 School Funding Reform Act funding formula, then the 2% tax cap on levies, and then the flat funding, and the flat funding then triggered S2, and then health deals were made. And stressor after stressor, these laws compounded the needs for cuts in spending, which means cuts in services for our students. And really, don't take my word for it. Here's a quote from New Jersey School Business Officials Association on just one of those stressors, right, the 2% tax cap. The cumulative effect of not increasing their levies over multiple school years and the consequences of a 2% levy cap prevented many districts from moving forward with These changes also, right, didn't happen in a vacuum. So there was still life happening while all these other outside influences are happening. And that the makers of the Funding Reform Act could have never envisioned, right? And two of the main things that happen that are impacting budgets in every school district here are safety and security and COVID. We all remember, Columbine, which was the very first, notable tragic incident that prompted school districts to be more alert with school security. And that happened in the 90s, so that was before the funding formula was created. And we got really good at drilling and lockdowns and evacuations, but when the funding formula was developed, it only included moderate safety and security aid. It did not and could not have ever imagined the personnel and the infrastructure districts would soon need as a basic part of its security plan. They didn't have a crystal ball to see tragedy after tragedy of the recent mass school shootings after the law was created. Currently, just so you're aware, the school security aid that Lenape Regional High School District receives only covers 35% of our actual operational costs in security. And then there's COVID, right? We don't want to forget about COVID, but it did drastically change our priorities in a very short amount of time. COVID relief money was temporarily provided to cover the cost of these priorities, that's true. And while we don't have expenses like masks and giant tubs of wipes and busing home meals and overtime for contact tracing anymore, we did change the way we do business. And our budget reflects new reoccurring expenditures like academic support, mental health support through Care Solis. Our reliance on technology and laptops and Wi-Fi are just examples of some new reoccurring costs that are now embedded in our budget. Temporary relief money also, it created an illusion that we were fiscally okay through COVID. And while student enrollment went down during that period, we couldn't really adjust our staff because we would have never been able to open up our schools with students over 30 kids in a classroom and meet the required social distance requirements needed during COVID to reopen schools. Those one-time revenue sources were the Band-Aids that balanced the budget. And Mr. Stowe actually handed out Band-Aids last year at our public hearing to everyone in the audience last year, just to reflect that, these were Band-Aids and that we were soon going to be at a fiscal cliff. And we did warn for several years that a fiscal cliff was coming, right? And then on the third major outside influence that occurred, I would say, on the budget and impacting everybody and making our budget goals be in the millions is inflation, right? Inflation is impacting everybody. We have been warning about needing, to prepare ourselves for the budget deficits that we were seeing. We didn't even see that inflation was coming. So all the warning that we were given was compounded even greater by the huge increase in the CPI. The CPI index right there is now how we measure inflation. And for many years it hovered around between 1.5 and 1.9. And then you can see it just drastically jumped up the last 2 years, this huge jump. We've all felt it, to just under 6% and holding steady for 2 years in a row. To give you one small, costly example of how inflation impacts the school district's budget, I'll just highlight the third one there, transportation. During this time period, from 1 year to the next, our transportation costs skyrocketed 27% in just 1 year, okay? I was talking about conservatively thinking about your budget, like move from 1 year to the next 4%. We could have never imagined, nobody would have ever appropriated or even thought that in 1 year our transportation costs would jump 27% in 1 year. That's supposed to be dramatic. Oh, there it is, 27%. Forgot I put it. Just so you know, I was talking about security aid that we get from the state of New Jersey only covers 35% of our operational costs. The transportation aid we get from the state of New Jersey only covers 25% of our operational costs in transportation. So all these factors indicate that their old funding formula, it needs to be updated. So how do we balance our budget, right? We've got some revenue stream in the middle, the green, our 2% levy and other revenue sources. But then it is just, overshadowed by the state aid reductions and the cost of everything going up. And what does that give us every year? A budget deficit in the millions. So how do we balance it? And the answer is, we're going to use a lot of methods, right? We're going to find some one-time revenue sources. One-time revenue efficient. We cull ideas, we collaborate, we cull ideas from everybody in the organization, and we make cuts in spending. So I just want to walk you through some of the grants. When it comes to grants, we apply for every single grant there is possible. We think it's necessary to do that. We know that it takes time to write and audit, but we do that because we want to get the things for our students that other school districts get, right? Because they get good state aid. The first one there is a huge one, right? The security grant. That was from our Burlington County freeholders. They're not called freeholders anymore, but at the time that's what they were called, the commissioners of Burlington County. And that's what you see are vestibules, right? We have those vestibules that slow down the trooper. That's what we're able to pay for that, those types of upgrades. Another security grant, the bottom there, Alyssa's Law. Okay, another big grant. Mr. Kehoe worked really hard on that. He's in the back there. That allows us to meet Alyssa's Law requirement, which is the simultaneous call to local law enforcement whenever 911 is called or schools in lockdown. It automatically now goes out to the local law enforcement. And then you've got the ARP, Krista, ESSER, ARP, ACERS. That's the COVID relief money I was telling you about. You'll see there on the second to the bottom there, Unified Sports. Again, we want to offer all the great new things that other schools have, and Unified Sports has been a great thing that we added to our school district recently. We're only possible because we have a grant to do it. And last year we got over $500,000. You see the second one there in a federal grant. That's for our post-grad students. Those are students that we still educate up to age 22, special education students, to work with local area businesses and enhance their out in the community job skills. And like I said, if there's a grant out there, we are going to apply for it. We want the thing other districts can afford through state aid. So I talked about collaboration. I just want to let you know, like, where do we get our ideas for cuts, okay? We resurrected an old thing that we did back in 2010, right? In 2010, we were at the same thing, 20% reduction in state aid. And we knew at the beginning of S2 where we were going to be at this end of this time. So in 2020, we resurrected some groups. We had about over 100 people in these 5 areas volunteer to sit down with us and come up with ideas on how they could make their areas a little bit more efficient, or maybe things that we could do differently to save money after every year. And we loosely called it our list of 100 ideas, and we went to that list every year for the last 3 years and came up with some lists of cuts. You have it over there in the handout there, just in our S2 impact statement, which goes over all of the areas that we've reduced spending with the goal to preserve the quality of education that we have in our school district. And just to go over a few here, we had to make cuts in personnel. We mostly through attrition, right? We made sure that if there was a teacher retiring, we were going to study that position and see if we could replace that position or not. And in most areas, we did replace that teaching position with a special education teacher because you saw that our special education population was down over 19%. So in some cases, if a history teacher retired, we were hiring a special education teacher. So you may not have seen our net staff enrollment decline in those years, but there were reasons for that. We merged Cherokee North and South and Lenape North and South, and in so doing that, we eliminated 2 building principals, 2 office managers, several assistants there, and other positions, non-REM positions throughout our district every year for the last few years. We instituted what are called scheduling efficiencies. As enrollment decreased, the number of sections decreased, and we may have teachers now travel from one school to another to fill their schedule. We have combined curriculums in some courses that have low student interest, mostly to keep giving those kids those opportunities at those upper level classes. We unleveled years 1 and 2 world language courses. Certain students can now opt out of PE. We're trying to have our students be less reliant on team teaching the older they get, because they should need less support. And also we cut costs by eliminating all double period courses to single period only, still being able to offer AP Studio Art and art major and woodworking and some of these, technical courses, but now in a single period rather than a double period, just to make sure we can save all those electives for our students. Transportation saw sharp reductions. You know, some of you will recall a time when we had 2 late buses, right? We had a 4 p.m. bus and a 6 p.m. bus. Well, the 6 p.m. bus went away in 2010, okay? And then, over time, we had to start downsizing our 4 p.m. bus. So when S2 hit, we changed our 4 p.m. bus that went every day of the week to only Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then we lived with that for a while, and then we just eliminated it altogether. We have now gotten rid of courtesy busing, so anyone who lives in a 2.5 mile radius of any of our schools has to walk to school. We also created neighborhood bus stops, which is very unpopular with freshman parents. They don't understand why their children have to walk several blocks to a bus stop when the middle school can pick them up right there. This is the reason why. Another unpopular cut we had to make is we had to no longer have dual pickup and drop-off locations for children of divorced families. So we're down to a single pickup for students who share time in 2 homes as a result of a divorce. We eliminated non-public routes, we reduced our pay of our dispatch person, and we moved crossing guard off our budget for townships to pick up for them. Other reductions and efficiencies, by combining Cherokee North and South, like I told you about, eliminating the principals, we were able to also downsize our school resource officers. We also reduced our security assistants job year, eliminated substitutes, right? We have CAT class now. Most of our teachers, when they're not in, their kids go to the cafeteria and open up their Chromebook and then do their assignment there in a large group area. It does save our school district about $500,000 every year by doing that. Again, these are one-time savings, eliminating buying textbooks or curriculum in certain years. And then we worked on centralizing purchasing. And then, of course, everyone knows parking, club, and athletic fees are there, right? Every little bit helps. Our kids pay to play sports and do an activity and park on our campus. We adopted a want versus need for everything that we want, right? Our parents have to pay for those types of things for their student athletes or the kids in play. We added tuition programs. You can go to Seneca, wherever you live in New Jersey. If you want to go to Seneca, you can pay to go to Seneca, and also some small special education programs. And then again, because of us too, we had to go back to the well and increase our athletic fee, and now parents have to pay $300 for their kids to play a sport in our schools. So even with 6 years of cuts in all the areas, still New Jersey demands more sacrifice from our towns. And Mr. Stowe will soon share our budget, which will include new cuts in all areas, programs, and staff now. There will be someone or something that a student loves, which won't be here next year. Staff who embrace the LRGC way and made positive connections with our kids. Our program, right, that we offer to broaden our students' experiences. There is nothing extra about an extracurricular activity, not in my opinion. They provide the whole experience that is high school, which is why we worked so hard for the past 6 years to really preserve those programs. Also, I want to make sure, there's one little thing here. If anybody, if you hear anybody confusing these 2 things, the referendum projects and the operational budgets are 2 separate buckets of money. Okay, so remember, we were able to obtain necessary upgrades to our facilities for the last few years through a bond referendum. And we did that because the state was giving us 40% towards those renovations, and we were able to have old debt service come off, and we can institute new debt service at a 0% tax increase. So those are types of things that can go into a bond referendum. Those are types of things that go into the operational budget, and you can't take money from the bond referendum and put it in the operational budget to fulfill. So I just want to make sure, in case there's any confusion there, of why do we have turf, but we're eliminating X, Y, and Z. They're 2 separate buckets of money. So to make sure we're understood. All right, so now you know the history of the School Funding Reform Act and all the forces that occurred after it was passed, which caused us to make strategic cuts for the past decade. We believe all those cuts were in line with, like I said, our original goal to preserve our educational and strategic opportunities for our students. And I share this information because we feel it's important for our community to be fully aware of what led us here tonight and to why we're to the point now where uncomfortable and undesirable cuts are inevitable and required of us. There are restoration of our state aid. And second, we need the state simply just to pay more. We were sitting with somebody and the woman who was evaluating, they just need to give you more money. And we're like, yeah, duh, right? But that's the School Funding Reform Act, okay? The second thing we need is the state to pay more for our district, and so our district is not reliant on our taxpayers to make up the difference beyond this year. In short, the flaws that we've been witnessing in the implementation of the outdated funding formula need everyone's attention. And so began our campaign this year to fight for restoration aid, because when we were anticipating a 337 loss in state aid, it turned into $4.7 million, which is over 14 times the amount we were projected to lose. Okay, and that budget hole that we were anticipating now became what I always say is a canyon. So what did we do about this to effect change and get stabilization aid? We spoke out about this injustice, sharing the possible negative impact to our students and to our district, and we worked hard to change the outcome. We alerted the media, because you know what, this issue is not a staff issue, it's not a student issue, it's not a parent issue, it's a community issue. I don't think there's anything better in our towns that I would point to that is the hallmark of that town that isn't our schools. Okay, and so it's a community issue, and so we needed to get to the media, we needed to get beyond our parents, and we needed our community to be aware of what's happening to their schools in their towns. We're also making sure the right politicians hear our story. In January, I testified on Senator Singleton's bill that would better fund special education, because year after year after year, we were underfunded in special education. This was well before we heard about Governor Murphy's state aid reduction, because we understand that special education has been underfunded for so long. Then once the governor announced the proposed cuts in the budget, with massive increases in state aid to some districts and massive decreases in other districts, we testified at the Assembly's and the Senate's public hearings on the budget. And over there in the right corner, I was thrilled to yield my time at the Senate budget hearing to allow Sam Levin and share his passionate speech that he and Dan wrote about how much they care about their school and how badly these cuts would be to our students. And to address the second need that I talked about, right, fixing the funding formula, our school business administrator, Kara Huber, was invited. It was an invitation-only committee discussion on the school funding formula and its future, and they wanted to hear from school districts like ours. Kara is an expert in the school funding formula and was able to offer her excellent opinion on the matter and some solutions also that we see that can make some changes for the long term, right? So we've got short-term fixes and long-term fixes that need to happen. And then most recently, the stabilization bill was introduced in the Assembly, and we did speak about that at the Assembly hearing, Bill 84161. The Assembly did pass their bill, so we went through the full Assembly, and they did pass their bill. The twin version of that bill is going to be heard by the Senate. That is Bill S3081. It's going to be at its first hearing on May 9th this week. So the Budget and Appropriations Committee will hear their version of the stabilization bill. What else did we do? Okay, well, we also appealed to the Department of Treasury, because our first thing when we saw the 19% reduction in state aid, we thought it was a mistake. Okay, so we sent the data back to them and said, is this a mistake? And they said, nope, your income wealth went up that year 11%. Like, okay, they didn't tell us where that data came from. We had some follow-up questions and didn't get any answers yet, but we will follow up with them, I'm sure of it. We also sent letters to the mayors asking for help. We appeal to you all, right? We bombarded you with letters saying, hey, do this, do this, do this. And in our last ditch effort, we did an email campaign to the senators so they would act on Bill S3081. We partnered with other superintendents, and in that partnership, we sent over 70,000 emails to the New Jersey legislature about Bill S3081. Also, I mean, I feel like I'm best friends with all these local politicians here. Kara and I and some board members, we've been very busy meeting with a number of our local politicians to ensure that they are fighting for stabilization aid, short term, and fighting to fix the formula in the future. Our days, nights, and weekends have been spent with these officials on phone calls, Zoom meetings, and in-person meetings. And this is not our first rodeo, okay? We've been connected with other districts like ours social media, email, phone blitzes, and attending Senate Assembly hearings. That picture below, right there, is from the last time a student volunteered to help. That was in 2020. That's Drew Varlese. We were giving a community forum rally about S2, trying to let people know, hey, the sky will be falling soon. And Drew came up to me at the stage and he put out his hand and said, Dr. Birnbaum, I'm Drew Varlese. I love Lenape High School, and even though I'm graduating this year, I want to help you. Right? Well, I wasn't going to pass that up. So I asked him to come, and he spoke about how Lenape has made him the person that he was that day. It's pretty remarkable. I don't think he knew he was fighting for the kids that are in our classrooms today, right? 4 years later. They didn't listen to him then. They didn't listen to, maybe they're listening now, right? I feel like they are getting some attention now. It's getting some traction. My takeaway from Drew, Dan, and Sam's volunteerism, well, and all the other students that have and will passionately speak about the activities that they don't want cut, okay, it's simple. The staff in our district and our programs make our schools a place where kids find their passion and find their voices. And I could not be more proud of what we offer, all of it. It is not LRTC failing our students. I don't mind being so emotional here. It sucks. It's not LRTC failing our students, okay? It's our state. A state that claims they support education, but they don't show their support by funding all of its students in all of its towns, as Sam and Jan said. So I want to thank you for your attention during my long presentation, and I'm grateful to our community and our staff and our students who are speaking up against the consistent lack of support by the state of New Jersey for one of your regional school districts. Mr. Stowe, can you return to the podium and show the consistent lack of support by the state of New Jersey?
Carol, if I could really say something to what you spoke to tonight. So first of all, I'm from Woodland Township, very rural township, very limited, enrollment and things like that. Very limited growth rate as well. And we were fortunate enough back in 2010, 2011, 2012, when there was the school board in Chatsworth, to be able to come to the Lenape district and enroll our children in the Lenape district. It was the greatest thing that ever happened. We took a lot of heat, but at the end of the day, people couldn't have been more happy. I will tell you, in 2018, well, fortunately and unfortunately, I became the school board president, and that's when S2 was, passed at that point in time. We were up in Trenton all the time with all these other school boards from South Jersey, just screaming for like some support. They came out with this, formula that they told us was proprietary, which means they can't tell us why they did this and how they came up with this formula, which is ridiculous as a taxpayer. We fought that. We've been meetings, many meetings. I can't tell you how much time was spent for every Senate, especially the sending districts. We have 8 sending districts to this district. I cannot tell you the time and amount of energy that we were out there pounding the pavement, talking to politicians, engaging in things that, like, I had no idea what I was even doing or saying, except for I was being told to stop talking at some point in time. But it really, I can't express enough how important and sad this is for this district that we're going through, because we really have, over the past 6 years, $24 million in cuts. That's what we're gonna probably end up with, right? 24 to $26 million in cuts. They don't tell you, you don't know. We plan year to year, and when it comes up, that's what we have to do. So, just so people have an idea how important this information is, how important it is to get involved in your townships, and what they're doing and what you're doing in participation.
Thank you, Ms. Escalon. So you're probably on information overload right now. So take a deep breath, shift it around a little bit, because here we go. This graphic gives you an idea of where we are now and where we have been. Somebody classically called this the race to zero. If you were to look at us back in 2019, the state funding for our district was $28 million. In 2025, we're at 18.9 million. A similar type graph in 1994-95, that little yellow or big yellow spot right there is how much the state of New Jersey funded our school district. Over 39%. Flash forward to 24-25, and we are at 12.24%. That has to tell you something about Trenton's opinion of one of the best school districts in the state of New Jersey. There aren't too many that do it better than we do. So for the coming year, we have to present our budget tonight. Even though they can sit at home tonight and worry about this sometime next week, under law, we are required to present our budget by tomorrow. So we have to go with what we've been given. Our budget for the 25 year puts us at $175,136,075. That breaks down into two areas: our debt service, which we haven't increased over years, we promised we weren't going to, but our general fund of $167 million. Take away the state support and some other supports that we get federally and grants and things like that, our tax levy for the coming year, which still stays in that 2% that we have to stay with, is going to be $896,000. I want to point out a couple things. First of all is we're bound to the 2%, but our health care for the coming year is going to be going up 5.3%. If any of you are in business like me, or you're out there and you have your health insurance on your own, you know what you're going through with health care. We're going through the same thing. Our employees contribute towards it, but nowhere to the extent of a 5.3% increase. And I know that I hear it because I heard it tonight at my own Rotary meeting. One of my members had the nerve to tell me that we should just get rid of a principal or get rid of an assistant principal. And I told him, I said, I'll tell you what, I'll find you a day when you can shadow one of our assistant principals and you come back and tell me whether it's worth what you're going to get paid. Our administrative costs, we rank #1 out of our regions of students to administrators. #1's not, it's a great thing if you're looking at it from the standpoint of cost, but #1 means that we have the lowest ratio of administrators to the highest number of students. So one administrator for every 164 students in our district. We're #2 out of faculty to administrators. And our total administrative costs, we rank #10 out of 46. We are $187 or $1,087 below, 27% below the regional limit. So state says we can go up to $2,575. We're 27% below that. So with the expectations of what they're doing to us, as well as our special education costs, we have a $4.69 million reduction in state aid, but that's actually exemplified by the underfunding of special education that the state does to us. So really, we have a $12.8 million budget deficit that we have to fill this year. We were able to find utilize some funding in fund balances to come up with $2 million, but that still leaves us $10.8 million that we have to find somewheres to balance our budget. That's a new concept for Trenton, balancing the budget. Anyway, so we're looking at areas of operation, fees, student programs, stipends, and even staffing. You're going to hear three things. You're going to hear people, program, and positions. That's where this is gonna come from. For the 25-year, we are eliminating things like our chance-like contract, an SOR that we had at Cherokee High School. It's actually a situation where an officer is retiring, and we're going to be able to fill that position with an SLEO officer instead. So we're still gonna have the security there. We're eliminating some of our non-mandatory special education programs and activities, textbooks and supplies. You already heard about curriculum, transportation, the elimination of some activities at other locations, and even supervision at events, guards versus state police. We're gonna have new fees. This year, or next year, graduation, our parents, our students are gonna have to pay for their cap and gowns. If your student wants to take the PSATs, they're gonna have to pay for that. Seal of biliteracy tests, even the Chromebook warranty. Parents are gonna have to foot the bill for that warranty. Some of these things, we may be able to replace if we get that funding that's coming supposedly, but who knows? These guys could change their mind in a heartbeat, and we're still left with what we have here. Student programs and stipend positions. We're reducing things like the Navy Junior ROTC at Cherokee. We're eliminating gymnastics and bowling. We're eliminating 20 clubs that are showing either low participation or a duplication of services. And we're reducing over 20 stipend positions, positions in academic, co-curricular, and athletic. Again, we might be able to restore some of these, but only if we let them know up there how we feel. Staff positions for the coming year. We have reallocated some funds that we're going to use on faculty or facility related expenses. We've instituted a hiring freeze since December. And these two situations here have allowed us to sort of equalize $2 million in salary. Staff cuts to our budget. Administrative, certificated, non-certificated. These are real people. People that have been a part of our family for years. And some of them are just gonna have to go out and find a job somewhere else. We do have over 40 retirements and resignations. We won't be replacing them. 2 positions are being eliminated through a reduction in force. But we have over 90 non-renewals of non-tenured staff for the coming year. Again, there's that hope sitting out there that says maybe they'll restore us. Just in case you had some questions about some of the things I've mentioned, the Chance Life is a contracted service that we use to help our students earn high school credit. The Junior OTC at Cherokee, the program had some students under the limit that the Navy puts on it, and same with gymnastics. Participation has been a little bit light. We had to find cuts somewhere. So a summary of our tax impact on our communities. You'll see that almost every one of our communities except Evesham is going to see an increase in their tax for next year. You want a further explanation of how did we figure this out? We didn't. You can see the superintendent or one of us afterwards, and we'll try to explain to you the limited information we have on that formula that the state comes up using our equalized values and so on and so forth. It changes every year. So in summary, we have a decrease of over 20%, close to 20% in state aid. We have our general fund tax levy of 2.08%, and a debt service tax levy of 0, for a total tax levy increase of 2%, which keeps within the required state mandate. Reduction in people, administrative, certificated, non-certificated, reduction in programs, and a reduction in positions. And these will just depend on whether anything happens up in Trenton. What can you do? It's not too late. They're not in session. They're sitting around, trying to make deals with each other. You can go to this site, you can click on that little icon up there, it'll take you right to where you need to be in touch with and who you need to be in touch with. Bill S3081 will restore jobs and programs in the Lenape Regional District. But the ultimate goal is to make them realize that they need to fix the funding formula. We can't continue, year after year I've been saying this. This was just we were just waiting for the bottom to fall out. I want to tell you that when I first heard this whole situation, one of the things I thought about was the amount of giving and sacrifice that this school district has had to do over the years. And I can remember back when my girls were little, and they're both older, they're in their 30s now, and they're both teachers. One teaches down in Roanoke, Virginia, has her master's degree, an amazing math teacher. The other one is a special ed teacher right here in our local community in Lumberton. But when they were little, I used to read them a book called The Giving Tree. If you've never read this book, it's an amazing book. And it talks about a wonderful tree that loved a boy. So much that he would give that boy anything. He'd give him leaves so that he could play in. He'd give him twigs so that he could build things. He'd let him swing in his limbs. He'd let him lie under the shade of his tree. And even to the point at one time that he actually gave him the very branches of his tree and the main trunk of his tree so that he could build his home. And when he was nothing more than a stump in the ground, the little boy came around one day and the tree said, "Here, take my stump, take a place to sit and rest your weary body." When I think about that book, I think about this school district and what we have sacrificed and what we have given to continue to make the Lenape Regional High School District the unbelievable great district that it is. What disturbs me is that the state leaders don't see this. I don't know what they're looking at, other than, I don't know what they're looking at. I don't even want to go there. But I will leave you with this. This year marks a record for our state. They have reached the lowest percentage of support for our children in the budget of the Lenape Regional District in the history of our existence. Thank you for your time, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Stowe. Dr. Brown, thank you both for a very sobering and comprehensive presentation. This meeting will now be open to the public, referencing 2024-2025 budget only. However, if your questions or comments pertain to litigation, student or personnel items, or negotiations, we would ask that you see the superintendent after the meeting, since we do not discuss these items in public. In order to accommodate all those who may wish to offer public comment this evening, as well as to ensure the orderly and efficient operation of this meeting, the board will abide by the public comment protocol in accordance with board policy 0160, and which is described on the printed agenda, copies of which are available at this meeting. So the public comment protocol is as follows. Participants must preface their comments by an announcement of their name, place of residence, and group affiliation. Comments shall be limited to 2 minutes in duration, and each public comment session of the meeting should not exceed 30 minutes in total. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. To the extent that any comments made are repetitive or prior comments by others, the board reserves the right to limit such comments as appropriate. Are there any public comments regarding the
we gather tonight to discuss budget cuts, let's acknowledge that this is not a budget meeting. The laws and funding formula that holds districts to a 2% cap doesn't hold the same percentage of losses isn't at the fault of the administration. It's a harsh reality that we can all agree is not ideal for our community and our schools. While I understand that the board faced difficult decisions, I want to draw attention to who's bearing the brunt of these costs, our members. To put it in perspective, we're proposing to cut jobs without taxing our members. We add that to the budget's higher. That's over 110 million fewer adults in our schools, it's 13% of the numbers for student students. You are cutting the job to people who is direct contact time with your students, the ones who make the biggest difference in their educational experience. I said it last month and I'll say it again. These cuts affect real people. But when you take away those who the students depend on every day to succeed, it jeopardizes the quality of their education. It jeopardizes their well-being. And as we move forward, I urge everyone here to continue advocating for our schools and our community. We must hold our elected officials accountable and demand that they take immediate action to provide relief. I hope that we can all work together to ensure that our students, teachers, and schools get the relief that they need, the support that they need, and that is done soon in the best interest of our students and our community.
Public comment section is now closed. Thank you. We'll move on with the meeting, purchases and investments. Mr. Stowe.
Yes, I'd like to move to ratify and approve purchase of test payments and investments, items 6.1 through 6.7.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Eslon?
Yes, but I abstained from 6.1.
Mrs. Harmon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lake? Mr. Lake?
Yes.
Mrs. Levis? Mr. Roseborough?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanson? Mr. Smith?
Yes, but I'll abstain from 6.6 and 6.3.
Okay, this meeting will now be open to the public referencing agenda items only. However, the comments, the questions or comments pertaining to litigation, student or personnel items, or negotiations, we would ask to see the superintendent after the meeting since we do not discuss these items tonight. All right, any comments on this item? Public comment section is now closed. Comment on the agenda item? Yeah, just confirm. No problem, just confirm the comment on the agenda item.
I'm here to discuss agenda, my name is Sharon Flake, Lenape Flake. I'm here to, discuss agenda item 812. I'm a taxpayer in this district, a parent of 2 alumni. I'm an alumni, my brothers were alumni, and, both my parents were previous administrators in this district. So I'm very familiar with, especially when the budget cuts are affecting those who make the most significant impact on our students' education.
Please wrap up your comments.
I urge you to table agenda item 812 and take a moment to reflect on what our district truly needs. As a parent, a taxpayer, and a teacher in the district, my priority is the quality of education our children receive. Thank you.
Public comment section is now closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blaze, for your comments, and yes, in light of the budget presentation, I believe you did hear Mr. Stowe talk about how we have the lowest spending, administrative, student-to-teacher ratio, administrator to student ratio, administrator to faculty ratio, number one in all regional school districts in New Jersey. You can't go any better than number one. On top of that as well is, again, I thank you for your comments, but you also noticed in Mr. Stowe's presentation, he talked about the $2 million in surplus, and one-time funding that was used to save positions. Just so you're aware, all those positions saved by the $2 million injected, getting down from $12.5 million to $10.5 million of cuts, those $2 million of saving was injected to save pure LPA positions, just so you're aware of that. So that money was all used to save LPA positions at $2 million.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to personnel. Mr. Lee.
President, I move to approve personnel items 3.1 through 8.13.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? This is a roll call vote, please.
Second. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Eslo. Mrs. Harmon. Mrs. Lee. Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Levis. Mr. Roseborough.
Yes.
Mrs. Sampson. Mr. Stowe.
Yes, for all 3.1.
Building and property, Mrs. Lee.
I move to approve building and property items 9.1 through 9.7.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? This is a roll call vote.
Mrs. Eslo.
Yes.
Mrs. Harmon.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Levis. Mr. Roseborough.
Yes.
Mrs. Sampson. Mr. Stowe.
Yes.
Transportation, Mrs. Eslo.
Transportation items 10.1 through 10.9. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? This is a roll call vote.
Mrs. Eslo.
Yes.
Mrs. Harmon.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Levis. Mr. Roseborough.
Yes.
Mrs. Sampson. Mr. Stowe.
Yes.
Food services, Mrs. Eslo.
I move to approve food services items 11.1 and 11.2. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? This is a roll call vote.
Mrs. Eslo.
Yes.
Mrs. Harmon.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee. Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Levis. Mr. Roseborough.
Yes.
Mrs. Sampson. Mr. Stowe.
Yes.
Finance, Mr. Stowe.
As I'd like to move to approve finance items 12.1 through 12.9.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? This is a roll call vote.
Mrs. Eslo.
Yes.
Mrs. Harmon.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee. Mr. Lee. Ms. Levis. Mr. Roseborough.
Yes.
Mrs. Sampson.
Yes.
Mr. Stowe.
Yes.
Education, Mrs. Levis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve education items 13.1 through 13.9, implement and recognize donations totaling $40,160. This is very long list.
You want to tell that?
You want me to read all that out loud?
We have to tell.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? This is a roll call vote.
Mrs. Eslo.
Yes.
Mrs. Harmon.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Levis. Mr. Roseborough.
Yes.
Mrs.
student activities, Mr. Lee.
Yes, I move to approve student activities items 14.1 to 14.3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? This is a roll call vote.
Mrs. Aslam?
Yes.
Mrs. Harmon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lake?
Yes.
Ms. Levis?
Yes.
Mr. Roseborough?
Yes.
Mrs. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Executive planning, Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve executive plan item 16.1.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? This is a roll call vote.
Mrs. Aslam?
Abstain from item 15.1.
Mrs. Harmon?
Yes.
Mrs. Lake?
Yes.
Mr. Lake?
Yes.
Ms. Levis?
Yes.
Mr. Roseborough?
Yes.
Mrs. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
We have any new additional business? Any old business? Okay. This meeting will now be open to the public. However, if your questions or comments pertain to litigation, student or personnel items or negotiations, we would ask that you see the superintendent after the meeting since we did not discuss these items in public. Public comment section is now closed. Thank you. Executive session. Whereas NJSA 10:4-6 authorizes the Board of Education to meet in executive session under certain circumstances. And whereas the Open Public Meetings Act requires that the board adopt a resolution at a public meeting to go into private session. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Lenape Regional High School District that it is necessary to meet in executive session to discuss certain items involving matters of personnel confidentiality rights, including but not limited to staff and or student disciplinary matters, and specifically, give reports, matters involving anticipated or pending litigation, including matters of attorney-client privilege, and specifically, RT versus Lenape School District, matters involving personnel issues involving but not limited to employment, appointment, termination of employment, terms and conditions of employment, evaluation of performance, promotion or discipline of any public officer or employee. Be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public as soon as feasible. The minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed to the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Further resolved that the Board of Education will return to open session to conduct business at the conclusion of the executive session. Need a motion to move into executive session?
Motion to move to executive.